I see Jan, John, and Lance. Rick, okay, good. Rachel, are you guys good on your end?
Yes, we are. We're ready to go and ready to go.
All right. Well, let's go ahead and call to order our June 2nd Board of Directors meeting in a hybrid format for pretty much everybody there. Our first new board meeting in the new board room, even though I am not there. So, but you guys look good, those that you were there. Very nice. Rachel, can you call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Kim Daughtry.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Christine Frizzell.
Present.
Mayor Joe Marine.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Jared Mead. Councilmember Tom Merrill.
I'm here.
Thank you. Mayor John Meering.
Here. Thank you.
Thank you. Labor Representative Lance Norton.
Here.
Thank you. Mayor Sid Roberts.
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Jan Schweddy. Here. Thank you. And Councilmember Stephanie Wright. Chair, we do have a quorum. I'll quickly check to see who's here from our alternates group. Do we have Councilmember Gallagher?
Here.
Thank you. Councilmember Meering. Councilmember Payne. Mayor Thompson. Mayor Matsumoto Wright.
Here.
Thank you. And Councilmember Wright.
Here. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Rachel. So we have received a written comment today by Mr. Joe Kunzler. It's provided to the board in advance of today's meeting. And we have quite a few folks signed up to speak. So we'd like to, just as a reminder, that each speaker has 3 minutes to provide comments. And we are going to start with Shelley Schweigart.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I don't see my video, so I've never done this. So good afternoon to all Snohomish County residents and Community Transit Board members. My name is Shelley Schweigart, resident of Arlington. In 1990, I joined ATU Local 1576 and have remained a member in good standing. 30 years as a bus driver for community transit, I was awarded 2 million miles for safe driving. With having said that, I was one of 65 community transit employees identified as having a religious exemption. On December 31st, community transit terminated all 65 of us. My unemployment was approved through investigation finding no fault of my own pertaining to CT's vaccine policy. During this time, I was on state paid FMLA, giving my father end of life care. Community Transit has 2 properties in Snohomish County, Cache Park Base and Hardison Road Base. All 65 of us were terminated from Hardison Road Base. Nobody was terminated from Cache Park. Other city transit agencies have no vaccine mandates, including Boeing. The 65 terminated employees who are frontline workers and have health conditions were not offered HELSA. HELSA would have protected our jobs. As of January 1st, 2022, Community Transit new policy requires employees to be vaccinated as a condition of employment. Since that policy, 69 vaccinated employees tested positive for COVID-19. If vaccination hasn't prevented the spread of COVID at the site, why is this policy still in place? We are around unvaccinated people in the environment. Customers on the bus can sit side by side with no mask, regardless of their vaccination status. The driver is socially distances in a bus that now includes a sanitizing air filtration system. Most importantly, passengers feel safe riding community transit because, frankly, we have the world's best drivers. Today, I'm asking Community Transit's Board of Directors, hire them back. All employees terminated, hire them back. Start the healing process and hire them back. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schweiger. Melinda April. All right, Melinda April, can you hear me? All right, let's go to Peter Miket and we'll come back to Melinda. Peter Miket, are you ready?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
You can hear me?
Yeah, Melinda, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
My name is Melinda April and I'm a retired CT driver. I'm here to show support for my supporting service and hiring back my fellow drivers. As a resident of Linwood, I not only pay sales tax for both transit agency, but we also pay more car sales tax for Sound Transit, and it is important for me to know that we are getting what we are paying for and have a better, great bus service for light rail in the near future. I was proud to serve as a driver for 35 years with Community Transit, and it is heartbreaking to hear that some of my fellow drivers are being terminated after serving through the toughest times of our pandemic. Please restore the service cuts, hire back our drivers and mechanics. By the way, I am vaccinated, but I do not support this mandate. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. April. Peter Miket. All right. Peter Miket. Okay, well, we'll come back to Peter then. How about Sabrina Araya? All right, I'm assuming you guys can hear me. All right, Sabrina Araya?
She's here, Chair.
Hi.
Okay,
Hi,
thank you.
everyone. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sabrina Araya, and I worked for Community Transit for 2.5 years as a manager of system planning in 2020 and long-range planning manager in 2021. I'm here today also in support of drivers and mechanics whose religious or medical exemptions were not accommodated and were let go of at the beginning of the year. I would like to point out how terminating those drivers is affecting the planning efforts I was a part of. And I'll start with Northgate. For about 1.5 years, CT collaborated with Sound Transit in a major public outreach effort that involved several open house forums, public surveys, and presentations to the board. You approved a plan that made connections at Northgate to light rail appealing to current customers because they provided 15-minute service in the afternoon so that transfers from light rail to buses are easy and seamless. Since this change was major, even if it was a positive net increase of service hours, there was a Title VI analysis that was required. And the approved restructure was implemented on these routes in October of last year. 6 months later, in March of this year, without any public input, more than the number of trips added in October were cut. Frequency of service in the afternoon went back to 30 minutes in the middle of the school year. There were over 40% of trips cut on the 800 series routes. Secondly, for 2024, we've been talking about it for a long time. It's been a major focus for the agency. The 2021 Transit Development Plan you adopted in early September of last year showed a 30% increase in service over the next 6 years, with over 500,000 hours of service in 2024. The new 2024 network draft that was presented to the public last month had what I estimate to be at least 60 to 80,000 service hours less than in the adopted TDP. The change didn't come from less revenue or lack of resources. As you know, those are plentiful, but it is a direct consequence of the mandate. And customers now have less travel options. Meanwhile, the agency is moving forward with capital improvement programs of over $300 million over the next 6 years, including Swift Orange Line, zero emissions, facilities, speed and reliability, innovation, which are all amazing projects, but only if we don't forget that the main expectation from our customers and community is actual service frequency that compels new ridership, and robust connections to light rail. If that service growth doesn't happen, it's like building a beautiful mansion and then asking your family to live in a tent in a backyard. It's just not very useful for customers. So please find a way to bring us back from this derailment, rescind the policy, hire back drivers and mechanics, and restore service. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Araya. All right, we're going to come back to Peter Miket. Are you available, Peter?
Yes. Yeah. Okay, got the connection. Got it. Yeah, my name's Peter Miket. I live in Everett. I've been with community transit for 26 years. I'll be approaching 2 million miles this month of June. And since working at CT, I've been studying the run cards. Now, from a driver standpoint, my crystal ball, what I'm seeing now in current reality is, since the mandate was went into effect for all employees, and they let go of some 65 drivers, and he's been in a hiring crunch, and that impacted service greatly. I found that the so-called answer has been to recut the runs, increase more overtime to drivers. I've studied the run cards that are out now for this next shakeup, and recovery time on 45 minutes to an hour and 20-minute runs are 7 to 8 minutes of a turnaround time. What happens there is, you drive for an hour and 10 minutes. You got 7 minutes to get out of the seat, go to the bathroom, get a bite to eat, whatever, and then get back in the seat and drive for another hour and a half. And it's the impact is greatly impacting driver morale, the drivers at work. Yes, the coverage will get covered, but there's still going to be drop trips. There's drop trips now, if you don't know about it, on weekends, mainly Swift, because of the number of drivers unwilling to do Swift and call out because of the fentanyl and the drug trafficking that's going on the buses. You've seen videos from previous meetings that it's still going on. I, as a report operator, cover that work. And what happens is, I just recently experienced, not on a Swift, but on a local run out to Gold Bar, someone lighten up in the back of the bus. And I had to pull it over and make an announcement, get that driver or get that passenger to leave, but he never did. So I continued on. I wrote up an event report as asked, and yet this is still going to continue. I'm sorry. There's still going to be call outs. People are still not going to want to do Swift. But because the way this what we call a shakeup will start next week, there's still going to be drop trips. You cut up the report operators work from 25, went down to 20. And of the 20, 6 of those have to work weekends, which is, according to my crystal ball, that's the answer to cover the Swift work on the weekends. There's still drop trips in a sense of, instead of every hour, I know firsthand that the Swift trips were going about every 2 hours in these last few weekends. And it's, I'm telling you, it's not good. And I understand that, the CEO is trying to do the best he can, but the bottom line is, you got to lift the mandate or rescind it or whatever, and get the drivers that were laid off back and restore this to a better company than it has been the last year and a half. and restore morale. I will report again next month on what I know from the outcome of this shakeup that will start next week. I'll have 3 weeks of data, be willing to share, and know about the drop trips that will continue. And what I've learned, now that you've got 2 SWIFT lines going and you want to add another one, I see it as another way for drug trafficking option for the drug dealers. The orange line is going to cross Highway 99 at 196 and then down again with the green line in Mill Creek. That's going to be the new connection routes. The drug trafficking is going to continue. And in my experience, and also in these last few weeks driving Swift, I have seen no support, no police officers at Airport Road 99, which is a main connection point, and anywhere else over even on the green line at Boss Leverett Highway and 132nd, which is the Fred Meyer area connection point. I don't know what the plan is. I sure would like to know, but I really don't feel supported. Many other drivers don't feel supported right now. There was in the beginning, last month or so, that there's police officers out and everything, but I haven't seen them for the last 3 weeks. And boy, I sure would like to know why. We're paying for the service and support, but something's just not happening. And as this continues, it's going to be tough going. And then not only you want to increase the orange, bring in the orange line, the one that I'm really concerned about is the one that's going to go up to Marysville. That's going to be the main connection hub point. Based on my years' experience, the drug trafficking I've seen, how it operates, it's just going to get worse. And I really like to know the plan to deal with it. Because if you're really talking public safety, you also got to talk driver safety. And that bus is only as safe as the driver operating it. And if someone lightened up on the bus, smoking that stuff, I have testimony from drivers that they've gotten headaches, sore throats, and it's bothered them. Even for me, it kind of bothered me just the smell. But I still feel okay. I didn't get lightheaded or sore throat or watery eyes, but I just know I'm going to be subject to it again. And I'm still writing up reports, but that's the best I can do because that's what's asked of me. So please rescind or take a better look at how this company is being operated and what this policy is impacting the drivers, and not only the drivers, but the public. Thank you for your time.
All right, thank you, Mr. Miket. And then I have Steve Oss.
Chair, it doesn't look like he does.
All right, well, I know that we have Mr. Kunzler has his hand up, Joe Kunzler.
I didn't plan on speaking today, but I have multiple disabilities, and I just want to very briefly and very acutely thank Community Transit for the vax mandate. The vaccine's working against hospitalization and death. We need to remember, and I don't mean to creep anybody out, and I know it's a little weird me coming on after I said I wouldn't come on, and all of a sudden we got this discussion, but we have to remember, we lost an operator due to COVID-19. We've got over 1 million dead Americans from COVID-19, most of them unvaccinated or immunocompromised. My parents had to get their second booster to keep them safe. I wear a mask everywhere to protect the public. Being asked to wear a mask is like being asked to be a good citizen. And if you can't do that, then you should run your meetings from home. I'm sorry I have an attitude, but I am not going to leave my wingman, Rick Ellenfritz, down there all by himself to take the wrath of people just because he stood up and did the right thing to protect the public and listen to public health. Now, if public health has a different opinion about this, I'll zip the lip. But you also know I'm a big advocate of mask mandates because I don't want to lock down again for another 13 months waiting for some miracle vaccine You know, there's an other side to this. And I'm not going to sit by here in my home office and listen to the likes of Rick Ellenfritz get his, get lit up a torch like this for doing the right thing, for public health, for science. And by the way, I know most of you probably haven't heard this, but I've got, the US military is working on a super vaccine that will deal with all coronaviruses, including the flu. We should mandate that as well, because if it works, only if it works. And I've taken every vaccine offered me as a supporter of public health. And I ask that the focus of this conversation be on public health. And as far as the drugs on buses go, zero tolerance. I am all for throwing right into jail and treatment anyone who does drugs on a bus. I'm all for having the cops rough them up. I am sick and tired of anyone who thinks it's acceptable or normal or tolerable to burn anything on a bus. I don't know what people are thinking when they do that. It just boggles the mind. The thought of a fire in a contained space makes no sense to me. And finally, I have to bring this up because we're on the same trajectory here. I can't help but notice that everyone in that room is unmasked. I sure hope you're all vaccinated. I sure hope the board members are. I sure hope this is not some chicken you guys are playing, because the staff have got families at home. And I've counted on some of those staffers to get me through some very tough times, like dealing with Tim Eyman and Alex Zimmerman, who's back again. So please, put the public health first. That's why I decided to step in the arena today against my personal desires. Put public health first. Thank you for your time and thank you for your public service.
Thank you, Mr. Kunzler. Okay, that's all we have signed up to speak. I don't know if there's anybody else online that just raise your hand and it should show up for me. Okay, well, seeing none, we are going to move on from that. Hold on 1 second. Trying to look at my things here real quick. All right, CEO Elginfritz, you have an employee service award, I believe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'll switch gears now and move into our agenda. And we have a very special guest with us today. And we'll be recognizing this individual, not for their current role, but for their history with community transit. So Kathleen Custer is with us today, the head of our ATU Local 1576. And if you'll join me at the podium here, we'll make a special presentation. Okay, can you hear us? Great. Well, it's my pleasure to announce today that Kathleen Custer is celebrating and being recognized for 25 years of service to community transit. So welcome and thank you in advance for that service. Most of us know Kathleen is the head of our ATU, but she started at community transit many years ago. In fact, just months after her 21st birthday, I believe. As a coach operator. And after doing that for some time, moved on to becoming a dispatcher, where she supported her fellow employees before starting her political career and moving into the union leadership. As we often do, we polled some of the folks Kathleen's worked with over the years for some of their observations about her work. And I got a couple of things to share. It's actually kind of a history lesson for me. So it was kind of fun to learn some of those things about her background. I think you probably know, and for those of you who don't, Kathleen grew up learning about transit and learning about the union movement and learning about the role of organized labor in public transit, because it was discussed probably every night, maybe more than you wanted it to be, around the kitchen table at home. Because her dad, some of you might know Lance Norton here, a member of our board, was also a union organizer and union leader and a union member. He started in New Jersey, where the family lived, and that's where you were born, and continued as a leader in Local 587 in King County when the family moved out here to Seattle. And of course, Kathleen followed in Dad's footsteps. I'm told one of the only siblings who did. So I know
4 brothers, and I was the only one.
and I know he's especially proud of that. Interesting trivia. They're kind of like the Griffeys. They were the only father-daughter combination in the country to simultaneously serve as heads of the local transit unions. Lance in King County and Kathleen up here in Snohomish County. But it reminds me of that time father and son got into the game, Ken Sr. and Ken Jr. and Homer back to back. I wondered if you were ever comparing your contracts. Anyway, Kathleen has had an unrivaled commitment to serving the employees here at Community Transit and the members of Local 1576. She's got other properties that are represented by the local other bargaining units. In addition to Community Transit, so she serves a number of different organizations. And she is a fierce advocate, tough, and I can attest to this, but fair partner to work with. She believes in a collaborative relationship between management and labor, and she's worked hard to both represent and advocate for her members, but also do business in a collaborative and productive way with this organization. So I am very grateful for that. I'm very grateful for your 25 years of service, and on behalf of the staff here and the folks you work with, thank you for your service.
Thank you. I just want to say that I, aside from my career within the ATU, I'm very proud to be part of this family, and really it is a family. 25 years. I was quite young when I first started. Like I said, like you said, right after my 21st birthday, so I was quite young. I, didn't know how to hardly drive a car at that point. So, but this company has done really well for me and for my family, and I'm very proud to be here and to work here. So, and I always never hesitate to tell people that. So, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. I got that.
You got
Yes,
it.
I
Okay.
did. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We'll see you at the next meeting.
All right, congratulations, Kathleen and Rick, you're still up, right? You have a safety award.
Right, any other comments? Okay.
Well, thank you, Rick. I am extremely proud of all of our children and Kathleen. And as you alleged that she, when the children were growing up, and we had 4 boys and 2 girls, and if Carol and I, my wife and I, would discuss some of my activities that day, Kathleen, of all of our children, would stay planted at the kitchen table and listen. And the boys would scatter. They were out of there. And I often remarked to my wife how she, of all of them, was interested in what Dad did. And now I've learned so much from my daughter, and I am so proud of her. And of course, Community Transit has been blessed with her and her approach to being a reasonable and respectful union leader. And I appreciate her. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that audible. Next, we are joined as well by Tracy Christensen, who's the Executive Director of the Washington State Transportation Insurance Pool. She is here to make a safety presentation. Those of you who've been on the board for a while know Tracy. She's joined by some of her staff folks today. Great to have you here, and great to learn a little bit about WSTIP and what you're doing with CT.
Well, we're so excited to be here with you guys today, and it's amazing to me that I have seen some of you several times. So today we are here to award your employees' dedication to safety. And I'm presenting our highest award to Community Transit, which is our Safety Stars Award, which you might remember because we implemented this award in 2014. And of these years that we have had it, Community Transit has won 6 times and the last 5 years consecutively. What the award recognizes is members of WISTIP that maintain impressive safety records, basically showcasing the best of the best for each agency. We use 2 things to determine this reward. The first is your annual risk profile, and it's in the back of your risk profile report. It's the exposure to losses table, and it tells you how you're doing in a 5-year window snapshot. But we don't stop there. We also look at your 10-year history of auto accidents, and we compare the 2, and they both have to be good in order for you to win this award. We also structure the award in a way that we recognize members of certain sizes, meaning you are in the large member group and we have a small and a medium group. So your comparison transit agencies include Ben Franklin, C-Tran, Intercity, Kitsap, Pierce, and Spokane. So that is the group that you have to perform better than in order to lead this award. So what does this really mean? Well, it means actually you perform better than the next closest agency to you over 10%. It's a beautiful award, which I'd like to present to Rick. And we know that you have a really great place to put it. Do as well.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. But it really does take all of your employees to make this happen. Besides this beautiful award, which I know looks nice in your showcase, we also give you $5,000, but that $5,000 has to be spent in recognition of your employees, because it is the employees here at Community Transit and all of the employees that really make your operation the safest operation. So on behalf of WISTIP, a heartfelt thank you to all of your operators, mechanics, drivers, and all your employees, the planners, administrative employees, for making this a great place to work and accident avoidance part of your mission. While I'm here, I'd also like to remind you that WISTIP has continued the Jeffrey S. Risto Scholarship Program. This scholarship was started in 2013 as a way of recognizing and honoring Jeff Risto's contribution to the transit industry and WISTIP in particular. So Jeff was very instrumental in getting WISTIP off the ground. And we instituted that scholarship when he retired from here. This year, we have awarded 4 scholarships to transit agency employees seeking higher education, and that includes one of your own employees. Cara Brox, who's worked in your procurement department, received a scholarship to help her get her BA in business administration with a focus on public administration from Southern New Hampshire University. And in her last letter to me, she let me know that she has completed that goal for herself, and we're so happy for her that she has done so. So congratulations to Cara on her graduation. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for letting us come today and present this award on behalf of WISTIP to you at Community Transit.
All right, thank you, Tracy. That is awesome.
I'm just going to put it on the table for everybody to see. Thank you, Tracy, very much. And on behalf of the employees, Mark Holmes, Mike Suela, Jim Williams, their teams, all the employees who modeled this work in the field, Don, Jacob, your team, Transit Police Unit, everybody who contributes to safe operation out there in the field. We gratefully accept this award. So thank you very much. And I'll leave it right there.
All right. Well, Rick, you're doing such a great job and on a roll. Why don't you go ahead and give us your CEO report?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We will roll on with the CEO report. I'm debuting something new this month. The chair and I chatted earlier in the year about providing a written CEO report with a short update on various topics of interest to the board and activities by the agency. So that is in your packet today. And I'll use my verbal report just to touch on a few highlights. And as you have time, you can peruse the rest of it for other relevant and timely information about our activities. Today, I wanted to flag in particular the launch of the next generation Orca system, which launched May 16th with a successful, surprisingly and incredibly successful launch over the weekend. This is the second generation of the Orca system, shifting the technology that our customers use to an account-based system from a stored value card, and increasing functionality within the system. It is really remarkable that it is a $100 million 5-year project being undertaken jointly by 7 different agencies in the Puget Sound region, overseen by a joint board. So the level of complexity and coordination across all those agencies is hard to overstate. The work done by the regional leadership team, and in particular here by Tim Krobuck and his team led by Rob Jensen, was just remarkable. The cutover was seamless. The customers didn't experience any change. And we're out there working and engaging every day with our customers on how to ultimately create their accounts and move to the new system. So it's really a testament to our team's leadership and the role that we played within the region leading the overall effort. A couple of quick metrics already, just in the last couple of weeks, we've had 100,000 visits to the new My Orca website. We've had over 23,000 downloads of the new My Orca mobile app. We've got high ratings in the Apple and Google Play stores of 4.6 out of 5 stars for the new app. And we've got over 7,000 followers and subscribers already on social media to the My Orca newsletter. Plus 1 million impressions on Twitter. I mean, who knew? 1 million impressions for Orca on Twitter. We've got 95 new vending machines. We've got 720 new validators installed and running. We've had over 250,000 validator taps already in the new system, and approximately 2 million in revenue processed by the new system since launch. So, you know, it's great that we had a successful launch, and to recognize that, I just want to impress upon the board and the public listening at home the complexity of that effort, given the number of players, given the technology, given the geographic service territory being covered by this system. It really is quite an accomplishment. So thanks, Tim. A couple other quick things I'll highlight, and then I'll hand it back over to you, Mr. Chair. We are starting in, as I've discussed with you a couple of times, on analyzing changes to our fare policy based on the enactment of the Move Ahead Washington package to implement free youth transit passes. So we are going to come to the board committees over the next month, and then to the board with some recommendations for your consideration on policy revisions in the July meeting. Our timeline is to carry forward the policy for public consideration in the summer with a public comment period, and ultimately action by the board by our September meeting in time to go live with the changes this fall. The statute requires the policy to be changed by October 1st if we want to qualify for new state grant funding in the current biennium. So that's the timeline we're working on. So it'll be a busy summer as we work through those issues. Obviously, there's a lot of complexity. It has to be coordinated like Next Gen work within the region. So we're working with our transit partners on a unified approach to provide a consistent experience across the region. And we're also trying to tackle some of those complicated implementation issues that I've heard from some of you about. So more to come on that. The 6-year transit development plan will be also coming through the board over the same timeline. And that transit development plan will articulate our service growth plans for the 2022 to 2027 period, and also update our capital and operating reserves. So I look forward to engaging the board in those strategic discussions as well. Gold Line project is off and running in the planning phase. We've got a team on board helping us through the scoping study. That's the first step. Our project project schedule is roughly 5 years for planning, design, and construction with a revenue service date targeted for 2027. So it's a long lead project, but it's exciting to be getting going. A big part of the project is fleet procurement. Initial look at the nature of the service, the characteristics of the service, the length of the corridor indicates to staff that this may be a good candidate for a zero emission pilot program. So we have put in with the Puget Sound Regional Council's Project Evaluation Committee a request for grant funding to support potentially zero emission vehicles for this project. And they've come back already with a preliminary recognition or recommendation for a grant of $8 million to support the gold line. So that will go forward to the Transportation Policy Board later this year. A quick COVID update. We had 22 cases in May, which was an uptick from 11 in April. Our caseload has followed the counties very closely. So we are continuing to watch that closely. We shifted our guidance on mask wearing on board the vehicles in concert with our transit partners as well. The Ashway testing site continues to be a resource. The county executive has indicated that at some point in the near future, that facility may phase out. Ridership continues to climb. That's the good news here. We peaked 18,000 daily riders last week and 108,000 overall boardings last week. That's a high since the beginning of the pandemic. We are now at about 58% of our pre-pandemic ridership levels and about 34% higher than where we were this time in 2020. So we're continuing to see good progress there. Safety and security. We had another surge of security and safety activity on the Blue Line last week. This is our third since March, week-long emphasis on SWIFT that, if you will recall, involves assigning teams of ambassadors and road supervisors to ride the service throughout the course of the evening. We continue to see a pattern of a strong deterrent effect when we maintain that high staff presence on board the service. People who might want to board the bus see our personnel on board and decline. People who are on the bus maybe not up to the best of activities see our personnel board and they depart. So the pattern is pretty clear. We're going to be moving to a more intensive presence in the month of June to see if we can sustain that. And of course, I'll be bringing forward some proposals in that regard in the 2023 budget. Last thing I'll mention, two things, sorry. Recruiting is ticking up as well. We've brought on 51 new staff since the beginning of the year, including 13 coach operators. We've got 3 more starting tomorrow, and a class of 7 taking shape for next month. We are on track on recruiting to meet our service goals. We are also seeing a pretty strong preliminary response to the recruiting incentives that we're employing. And last but not least, we did have our 3rd meeting of our joint Community Transit Everett Transit Policy Steering Committee yesterday, where we had presentations on the finances of the respective organizations and the approach to planning in an integrated transit network serving the whole county going forward. And we got a nod from the policy committee members to continue forward with that work. So, Mr. Chair, I'll wrap up there. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Rick. We're going to move to committee reports. I'll start with the executive committee, and we met on Thursday, May the 19th. There was Councilmember Schweddy, Councilmember Merrill, Councilmember Daughtry, and I attended. The committee supported board member attendance at the upcoming APTA Transit board member seminar in Salt Lake City. So if any board members are interested in the conference, please contact Rachel. The CEO provided his report and an executive session was called for labor negotiations. The next executive committee is scheduled for June the 16th at 11:30. And our next up, we will have, second here, Strategic Alignment and Capital Development Committee, and that's Councilmember Merrill as the chair. And you are muted, Councilmember Merrill.
And I am muted now. I hope I am not.
There you are good.
Thank you, Chair. The Strategic Alignment and Capital Development Committee meeting was held remotely over Zoom on Wednesday, May 18th, 2022 at 2 p.m. The meeting was attended by Mayor Joe Marine, Councilmember Tom Merrill, Labor Representative Lance Norton. Absent were Councilmember Jared Mead and Councilmember Stephanie Wright. The committee reviewed and forwarded 2 action items appearing on today's board agenda. First is the award of RFP number 16-11, extension of the commuter bus service contract. Director Roland Behe will present this item. The second is the approval of the 2022-2025 Title VI program. Chris Simmons, Manager of System Planning, will present this item. The committee reviewed and forwarded 1 consent item on today's board agenda. That's approval of resolution number 10-22, WashDOT limited access rights at Lake Stevens Transit Center. This item provides WashDOT with approximately 45 feet of right-of-way access on community transit property to accommodate the widening of Highway 9. Community Transit sees no impact with the transfer of limited right to access and recommends the board approval for a cost of $500. And finally, the committee heard a brief update from Dee Tapia, EPO and Transit Technology Manager, on the agency's zero emission technology project. During the first phase of study and with the assistance from vendor WSP, staff are looking at service performance and modeling to determine the best zero emissions technology to support the 2024 service plan. Additional phases of this project will bring about a preliminary set of recommendations in January of 2023, with a final set of recommendations for board consideration in April of 2023. Board members most recently participated in the zero emissions workshop on April 21st of this year. The next meeting of the Strategic Alignment and Capital Development Committee is Wednesday, June 15th at 2 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, we have Finance, Performance, and Oversight Committee with Chair Mayor Roberts.
Hitting here for Jan, who was away. She lost her gold star. So the Finance and Performance Oversight Committee met on Thursday, May 19th, 2022 via Zoom. Board members Purcell, Naring, and myself attended. Consent items: approval of the April 2022 monthly expenditures and payroll, which are items 7C through 7G on the agenda. There were no action items, and under reports, we had the safety and security report, first quarter transit police report. The committee received a briefing on the first quarter transit police activities and information on what steps the agency has taken to improve safety on certain parts of the transit corridors. A copy of this report is included in your packet. Secondly, the April 2022 sales tax report in April. Community Transit collected approximately $14.3 million in sales tax revenue. This is approximately $1.9 million more than budgeted. April sales tax collections reflected purchases made in February 2022. A copy of this report is included in your packet. Thirdly, April 2022 diesel fuel updating report. The budget team continues to closely monitor fuel costs as fuel prices continue to increase. Year to date through April 2022, Community Transit paid an average of $3.49 a gallon for diesel fuel compared to the 2022 budget amount of $2.40 a gallon. This is a negative variance of $1.09 a gallon. The mid-year budget amendment was approved by the Board of Directors at their May 5th, 2022 meeting. The amendment increased budget authority for 2022 fuel costs. The next Finance, Performance, and Oversight Committee meeting is scheduled at 2 p.m. Thursday, June 16th, 2022 via Zoom.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor Roberts. All right, we have 7 items on consent. Does any board member need to pull any consent items? All right, seeing and hearing none, is there a motion to approve consent items?
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to approve the consent items. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that will move unanimously, which brings us to our first action item, which is award of RFP number 16-11, the extension of commuter bus service contract. Director Behe.
Thank you. Olin Behe, Director of Planning and Development. This item is the award of the extension of the commuter bus service contract to First Transit. I'm going to provide a little bit of background first, just as a reminder to the board. The First Transit contract encompasses all of the bus service that Community Transit operates from our Cache Park operating base. This includes Community Transit's 400 series commuter routes that travel to downtown Seattle, and also all of the Sound Transit ST Express 500 series routes that travel to Northgate and to downtown, as well as the east side. As a reminder, we own the buses in the base, and First Transit provides a turnkey service within that framework, including operations, supervision, and maintenance. Overall, this contract represents 25% of Community Transit's overall bus service, that including the Sound Transit operation, and it represents about 10% of the CT branded bus service. In terms of why we contract this service, it's important to understand that the peak directional commuter service model on freeway is the most expensive model of service that Community Transit operates. Buses operate in one direction, carrying passengers. They need to return to their origin point to pick up another load of passengers and travel again. Because of that inherent inefficiency in the operating model with peak directional freeway express, it is an expensive service model. And so Community Transit experiences a substantial cost savings by contracting the service. And so we apply that to those contracted services in order to provide the best possible use of public funds. And that's the background on why this service is contracted. This particular contract has been a 10-year agreement in place since 2011. The current agreement expires on December 31st of this year. And so we're in the process of figuring out what that next step is. As we began to consider this last year, we realized the normal step would be to issue an RFP to the industry to generate new pricing and competition to award a subsequent multi-year agreement. The difficulty with that is that, as the board is aware, we are in the process right now of designing and considering the 2024 network restructure, which is the single biggest shift in Community Transit's network in our history. We are largely redeploying services that have been in the I-5 corridor for decades. There will continue to be a measure of express service in our system, but it's going to look different than it has in the past. And in that we are in the process right now, we've undergone 2 phases of public outreach. We have another phase ahead of us, and we're just now beginning to get into the details of what we've heard and begin to design those final network concepts. We haven't been in a position to provide any clarity to the industry on what we would propose that they operate in a successor agreement to the current contract. So given that lack of clarity, and that is true as well of the Sound Transit service that they are operating in the corridor, we felt that the best path forward was to pursue a 1-year non-competitive extension to the existing agreement under the same terms and conditions to buy us some time, so that once we get clarity on the new network that the board is scheduled to approve late this year, we can then determine next steps at that point. We briefed the Strategic Alignment and Capital Development Committee on this plan in November of last year. And then following that, in December, we initiated conversations with First Transit to begin negotiation of that 1-year extension to the current agreement. On April 19th, First Transit submitted their best and final offer, and we negotiated the price for the January 1st, 2023 to December 31st, 2023 agreement at $22,640,916, as is provided in your memorandum. And that price encompasses both the Community Transit and the Sound Transit portions of that contract. The base cost of that service is $188.67 per hour of service. That is an increase over the current rate we are paying. And the existing rates were negotiated in 2019 under a substantially different economic framework. And so we're seeing increases in the cost cost of labor, increases in the cost of insurance and other items. And it's consistent with what we've seen in our own expenses for our direct operations, as well as what our partners are experiencing. So therefore, we've determined that the costs in this proposed extension are fair and reasonable. In terms of budget impact, the proposed extension does not impact the 2022 operating budget, and the updated pricing will be incorporated into the 2023 budget, which we will bring to the board later this year. Our recommendation is that the board of directors authorize the chief executive officer to negotiate and award a 12-month contract extension starting January 1st, 2023 to First Transit Incorporated in an amount not to exceed $22,641,000 to operate commuter bus services. I'd be happy to answer questions.
All right, thank you, Director Behe. Any questions?
Sorry about that. Yeah, I just had one. How much is brought in by fares a year, just approximately?
So in terms of specific to the contracted services,
Well,
or overall?
I was just curious with, and I understand what you explained and everything, but I was curious whether that fares covered 5% or 10% of operating costs.
Yeah, so what I'll do to answer that question, I'm going to describe the pre-COVID condition and then relate that
Yes,
to what
right.
we're experiencing today.
That's what I.
So I'd say traditionally, this service, as the board is also aware, we have traditionally charged a premium fare for commuter services, recognizing again the high cost of that business and the premium that's attached to it. The market will also bear a higher fare for it. So traditionally, that's $4.25 for the trip. These have been among the highest productivity routes that we have operated historically. And so those, I think everybody's familiar. We operate articulated buses. We operate double-decker buses in this service, which is kind of the marquee vehicle in that corridor. Those are often very full during that peak hour commute. And that's reflected in the revenue. And many of these routes were recovering upwards of 60 to 70% or more of their operating cost via fares. So a very, while an expensive service to operate, also one in which we recovered a substantial portion of that expense via the fare box. Now, I want to caution that that situation is much different today. Greg provided the ridership report. Ridership has improved substantially, and but I would say that the inter-county commuter service took the biggest hit in the pandemic. That ridership initially sunk to something like 10% of its pre-COVID levels. We have just about doubled that since the low point in 2020, but it is still approximately 80% below our pre-COVID levels. So current fare box recovery is much different than what I just told you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Schwedde. Any other questions? Okay, I will entertain a motion.
Roland, if I may, I'm just curious, at the end of, for example, 2023, will community transit have a better idea by that time what services we need, if any, to contract out on that type of service that is now provided by First Transit?
So actually, by the end of this year, 2022, when the board approves the 2024 service plan, we will have a clearer picture of what will be required in 2024 and beyond. And so we anticipate that at that point, we will evaluate the service that will be provided and what is the best way to operate that service moving forward. So the answer to that question should be coming as we get into late this year and into early next.
Thank you, Roland.
Thank you, Labor Representative Norton. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, again, can always entertain a motion.
Okay, I will move that the Board of Directors authorize the Chief Executive Officer to negotiate and award a 12-month contract extension starting January 1st, 2023 to First Transit, Inc. in the amount not to exceed $22,641,000 to operate commuter bus services.
All right, we have a motion. How about a second? Did I hear? Or
Oh, yes, sorry.
all right, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, any opposed? All right, that will move unanimously, which takes us to our next action item, which is the approved Title VI program for 2022 through 2025. We have Chris Simmons heading this up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Manager of System Planning, the Title VI program falls within our area. For those who do not recall what the Title VI program is, this is the Federal Transit Administration's extension of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, where we are required to find ways to prevent discrimination based on race, color, or national origin, and the impacts on our services on minorities and low-income communities to the extent possible, so that we are not treating them disparately from the population writ large. It does not cover any other categories other than race, color, national origin, or our impacts thereon. Those are covered under other programs. We are required by the Federal Transit Administration to submit a renewal of this program every 3 years. That time is now. We're coming back to you after the public hearing last month and our public comment period. In the memo attached to your packet, you'll see that we have provided responses for all of those comments that were provided to us. Our finding was that none of those comments directly applied to the Title VI program as presented, or that we did not need to make alterations in order to accommodate those comments. As such, then, we presented a final draft to you for your approval to then send on to the FTA for review. And so we are seeking your approval on our recommended draft Title VI program. And I'm here for any questions.
All right, thank you very much, Chris. Any questions? All right, well, you clearly did an awesome job. All right, barring any questions, would anybody like to make a motion?
I move that the Board of Directors adopt Community Transit's 2022-2025 Title VI program. All
right, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved in second. Discussion on the motion? All right, seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, that will also pass unanimously, which brings us to our last action item, approve resolution number 13-22, the IAM Supervisors and Instructors Contract. Carla Freeman.
Hello, everyone. So I'm here to request approval of 1322, which would authorize Rick, our CEO, to execute a recently ratified tentative agreement by the instructor and supervisor unit for the International Machinist District Lodge 160. And I'm here to answer any questions that you might have for me.
All right, that's very good. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, no questions of Carla. Again, an excellent job. All right, do we have a motion?
I'll move approval, Chair Marine, that the Board of Directors approve resolution 13-22 authorizing the Chief Executive Officer to execute and implement a 3-year labor contract between Community Transit and International Association of Machinists District 160, representing supervisors and instructors.
All right, thank you. All right, we've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye.
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 All right, anybody opposed? All right, that will move unanimously. Very good. We're on to reports. I guess the only thing I've got to report today is that I guess I was struck and very much moved by the fact that we had 4 current or past employees coming up and speaking to the board. You know, we certainly always want employees to feel comfortable to be able to do that and understand that they are heard and they are listened to, and that we are working diligently to try to solve some of those issues that not just Community Transit is dealing with, but you know, the region and state as well. So thank you for coming out and speaking, and again, you are heard. All right, any other comments? Let's see. We can go right through the line here. Sorry, I'm doing it from an iPad and everything is much smaller. So All right. Councilmember Daughtry, do you have anything?
I have nothing this time. Thank you.
All right, Mayor Frizzell. Nothing from Mayor Frizzell. Councilmember Merrill.
Just one thing, and I'm looking forward to our next Tuesday night council meeting here in Snohomish, where the Community Transport Network and Long Range Planning will be presented. Thank you.
All right, remember, you need to give them a round of applause. That's a standard thing now. Mayor Neri.
Yeah, thank you. Great to be in the new building, and it was really enjoyable to come and to the ribbon cutting and open house here a short time ago, and so really appreciate that. And also congratulations to Kathleen on 25 years, and thanks for your service to the agency and the public. We do appreciate it.
Labor Representative Norton.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to pass on an interesting article that was in today's Herald under the opinion category on page 813. And this was titled "Lax LAX, Fair Policy Just Isn't Fair." And it was co-authored by the Herald editorial board. If you get a chance to read that sometime in the very near future, I think it's quite interesting. So just passing that on. Other than that, Mr. Chair, I have nothing else. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Norton. Mayor Roberts.
Yes, thank you. Yes, thank you. I too would agree with the chair that these testimonies are heart-wrenching. It's been a tough patch, tough season. I mean, I've been vaccinated 4 times. I think I'm just about ready to leak. I've been vaccinated so many times, but I really would like to see the agency roll up our sleeves and at least have a talking session about this. It's a very difficult situation, and I want the people who spoke to know that, you are being heard, and just a very tough situation. So I was going to leave it at that, and thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mayor Roberts. Councilmember Schweddy.
Say something on the lighter side. I missed both those meetings because I was in a 3-day retreat with the city council in Semiahmoo. And for 3 days, we had no hot water. So you can imagine how glad we were all to get home.
Water retreat.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Schweddy. That's why we never retreat. We always advance. But, yeah. Councilmember Wright. All right, nothing from Councilmember. And anybody I missed that may be on here that I wasn't aware of? Okay. That being that, I don't believe we have an executive session planned. Is that still correct, Rick?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Well, there we go. That should be good. And again, I guess I would also like to say congratulations to Kathleen Custer. I know that your dad is very proud of you, as is the rest of the board. I know that I've been on here quite a while and have had the opportunity to work with you and listen to you at the board meetings, and very well respected. And thank you for your 25 years of service. With that, is there anything else for the order or before we adjourn?
Mr. Chair.
Yep.
Steve Oss, who had arrived.
Okay. All right. Our Steve Oss is joining us. Okay, Mr. Oss. All right, you were unmuted for a second.
Can you hear me now?
We can. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm a lifelong Snohomish County resident. I live specifically in Everett. And I appreciate you giving me the chance to speak for a moment. I I was trying to log on and there was an error in my logging on, but that got corrected. What I would like to talk about is the vaccinations that have been mandated at community transit. I'm sure you are aware, maybe not everybody is, but everybody on the board and the CEO, you're stewards of the residents' property. Community transit belongs to the residents. And you guys are not the owners, you didn't create it, but you are the stewards of it. And in that, your responsibility is to run community transit the best you can to provide the service. And the service that you have been providing for the last couple months, let's see, dropped 233. And this is only the Swift Blue Line, dropped 233 trips according to your numbers. January, 114 February, 229 in March, 271 in April, and I got 75 for May. That's not good. And the reasons that I have been told that those trips were dropped is because there's not enough drivers, and you have terminated a lot of drivers. I personally work for Everett Transit. We haven't dropped any trips, nor have we required anybody to be vaccinated. And we have had a few people get the virus, and they get well. There are people who get the virus after having been vaccinated, and the vaccination doesn't stop people from getting the virus. The vaccination doesn't stop people from transmitting the virus. It's important that you are making sure the service that you're there to do is what you are doing, not just doing what you feel should be done. I think everybody should have a vaccination, and that's just the way I feel. That's getting into your feelings. And the reality is the vaccination doesn't overly protect anybody. What has come out is that some people aren't getting as sick, but also some people get the vaccination and die. And let people choose on their own. Whether there's somebody in the office or whether they're a driver, they should be able to choose for themselves. If you want to put up barriers, put up barriers. That's what Everett Transit has done. And we have not had a problem of any measurable significance by doing that. Thank you for the time. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Ross. And I'm glad you were able to get in and be able to speak to us. I appreciate it. Okay, Rachel, is there anything else for the good of the order?
That's everything, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Well, we will adjourn to our next meeting where hopefully even more of us will be in the new board room. So